my intention today is to go over the episodes and if possible to leave then some segments, key segments of the play for us to discuss next class and finish the play. In addition, next class, then let's do a rehearsal of your monologues. And so what about the episodes? What about this play? Who would you say is the main character of these episodes? What is their name? Somebody. Am I muted? No, I'm not.
Sebastian and I don't want to say the other one,
Diocletian. Diocletian, is that what you want us to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe Diocletian. I'm not positive. Okay. Yes. And let's answer the next question. Down the road, who is Sebastian and who is Diocletian? Jaylene, who are they?
The I don't know how to pronounce that word, but he's Alejandro.
Well, I'm not talking about the actors. I'm talking about it's Diocletian, a doctor. Is Diocletian a lawyer? Is Diocletian who is? And who is Sebastian? Is that a mechanic? Who are they?
Well, in the play, it's basically like a celebratory event of the saint. Saint.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah, Saint Sebastian. That's what I got out of the pages that we had to read.
So who is Sebastian?
He is a young nobleman.
But you said something else about Sebastian.
Yeah, like the holiday, and that's what it is, right? Or am I confused?
I don't know. So far, it's a mystery to me. What do you mean by holiday? Explain.
Because well, there's a lot of it says like for here on page 26, Alejandro says so-and-so staging it in the town square for Saint Sebastian celebration. And then it says, I loved Marta, but she continued to love her companion. And then it just goes on and talks about the role of Saint Sebastian.
Yeah. Jaylene, notice that I'm concentrating only on the episodes, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, this is one of the episodes that you had us read.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Looks like the introduction to the episode.
Yeah, it's one of the first pages.
Yeah. So my question has to do with if we read all the episodes, who is Sebastian? If we read all the episode, who is the Diocletian? It's not a very complicated question, right? So who is Diocletian, Megan?
Sorry, my mic was not working.
Oh, now it's working.
Yeah. So
you say hello, a lawyer, psychiatrist. Who is Diocletian?
He's an emperor.
Exactly. What kind of emperor? Is he a Spanish, Aztec? What kind of emperor?
Roman emperor.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Roman emperor. Maybe you have a question here about why do we have, these scenes about a Roman emperor and citizens of Rome? Because Sebastian is a citizen of Rome. And I'm going to try to clarify that because it can be unsettling not to know what are we talking about, right? The basics. So that's what I'm asking about. Who are they, right? Who are they? And when we say Rome, then we are referring way, way back in time, way, way back in time. But we can be more precise easily, because if you go to Wikipedia, as I did, you will find right away information about Sebastian, okay? Right here. And what Jaylene was already referring to. And notice how the play is actually accurate in terms of the iconic representation of Sebastian. Notice the arrows, right? Maybe notice the angel that is coming to, well, I don't know, save him from his first death, or maybe take him, up to the sky to heaven. But right here you have in Wikipedia, if you have any, doubts or about the context, it's easily solved by consulting this. Notice, Saint Sebastian, AD to 56 to 88. So we are talking about even before Jesus Christ was born. Or I'm sorry, after Deus, right? So 200 years, second, third century. Well, it says early Christian saint and martyr. And that idea of martyrdom, it's important, crucial for the play, and what it means to be a saint as well. And notice, according to traditional belief, he was killed during the Roman Emperor Diocletian's persecution of Christians. Sorry, I went to that page, but that's the face, more or less, of the guy. So these are actual historical characters that were alive and were also maybe adapted into a religious narrative that has been crucial for many people. You know how, what actually takes place in reality can be put in a different shape by religious beliefs, which are very powerful, right? Intense and vivid for people, okay? Because they are part of their lives. I wanna go back where I was. Okay, here we go. He was initially tied to a post or tree and shot with arrows, though this did not kill him. He was, according to tradition, rescued and killed by, and then we have a difference here with the play, because it doesn't say in the play that he was healed by this one person. Who, according to Sebastian, healed him? Remember that? When he was shot with the arrows, who healed him, according to Sebastian in the play? Anybody? Nobody? Mothers. And so that's not a minor reference to someone, right? Since we know that mothers for all our plays have been essential characters, doers, one way or another, doers, and women, right? And women. So, but if you go outside the episodes, you indeed will see how mothers are important for the whole play, because the Altarpiece of Yumbel, right? These episodes are being put on a stage by a group of actors, basically. But when they finish an episode, they go into being their quote unquote real, I guess, persons, and they tell very complicated, or not complicated, but I would have to say horrific, tragic story, okay, that has been hurting their lives. And then we have the mothers, also through the play and ending the play. But notice, this is outside the episodes, right? But there's a connection between the episodes, indeed, or the altarpiece, right, of Yumbel, the celebration being put on a stage, the narrative of Saint Sebastian, and what is happening on a stage with these actors when they go back to being themselves, okay? When they go back supposedly to be, because they keep acting. So one question we could have is, why the celebration? And I think Yaelin was more or less giving us an answer already, but there might be more than one answer. Secondly, what is the connection? And more importantly, perhaps, what is the connection between the San Sebastian story and the overall story that is being told by the actors as they are performing the main play, if you will, right? So I'm saying there's a main play happening and a secondary play, and the secondary play is the story of San Sebastian, okay? Okay, one more thing. So let me repeat one word, martyr. That's very important for the story. I would say another important word for the story is sacrifice. Sacrifice. And we may come back to those words in a few minutes. Okay, so what is happening with the episodes? Let's take a look. Maybe this is helpful to you, because at the beginning of each episode, like on page 28, if you go to page 28, Juliana is usually describing what is going to happen, right? It's like giving you an introduction. So she's on a stage telling the audience, this is more or less telling a summary, okay? Giving you a summary of what more or less leads to what will take place in each episode. The first one being the August Emperor Diocletian called Sebastian the Legionnaire and bestowed upon him his favor. However, Sebastian was a Christian. People already knew that in those days, cruel persecution existed and death was the fate of the Christian. So that's the beginning, right? The introductory segment. And then we have Diocletian and Sebastian on a stage. And what is happening between the two of them? I thought that these lines were important that Diocletian says on page 29. You need not bend your knee nor kiss the fringe of my robe. If you miss the significance of an emperor and the fact that nobody can touch him, then you will not understand these lines and why the emperor is saying this. You need not bend your knee. And remember that we still, if you're seeing videos of the Queen coming to visit Canada, or how you have to approach royalty, right? You know that you have to go very carefully doing what is following protocol, following a rigid protocol. You cannot deviate from that protocol. So place yourselves in that kind of situation and you will understand why the Diocletian is saying, you need not bend your knee nor kiss the fringe on my robe, okay? But by doing that, this seems to be a cool guy, right? Instead of saying, keep your distance or follow protocol, he's saying, forget it. You don't need to do that, okay? But what is the reason for that? Let's see why he would say that. Diocletian, so be it. And then Sebastian says, Lord, I'm not your equal, okay? And this, you need to put yourselves in that kind of situation, right? Because in America in particular, right, the idea, at least you tell me if this is a myth or not, is that we're not gonna follow protocol. And we're not going to do so because at least, the Europeans coming this way, we're fleeing from this protocol, from kings and queens to build up. And that's the narrative for the States, right? The usual narrative is that we came here to create a new society, shape a new society, away from kings and queens, and emperors, and so on and so forth, right? So, because protocol implies class distinction. You're superior, I'm not your equal, right? Lord, I'm not your equal. Why are you saying that? I need to follow protocol. My sanctuary intimidates you. And maybe this is a line that will tell you why he's trying to present himself sort of as an unequal to Sebastian. Diocletian says, same page, 29. Enjoy the pleasure that luck grants you, my son, because nothing lies beyond death. I, the August, invite you, drink from my cup. Wow! Drink from my cup. So my lips, have touched this cup, and now yours. Therefore, there is no wall between the two of us. In addition, the emperor has said to Sebastian, my son. Okay? So is he expressing fatherly love? And therefore, for that reason, there shouldn't be a barrier between the two of us? Forgive my being frugal. And this word frugal here seems to be crucial because it identifies a value, right? A Christian value. Page 30. Do you love me, Sebastian? Yes, my Lord. You and all those who serve you. Of course, they have to love him, quote unquote, because he's the emperor. I, without being a Christian, feel love for you who serve me. Okay, so the emperor is saying, I don't need Christianity for me to love people. The question is, if you're in power, do you love people? Depending, maybe, right? If you're the emperor, do you actually love all people? Christian times, Roman times, as we just saw on Wikipedia. The key question that comes up next is, and for him, you're a slave, meaning, do you feel love also for him, you're a slave? He who is served ignores the suffering of those who are forced to serve him. Says, well, I'm sorry, the Diocletian response to, and for him you're a slave, of course not. I am a cruel man then, a cruel man. Well, why am I going to feel love, says the emperor, if I am the emperor, right? Slaves are slaves. They don't belong in the polis. They don't belong in the city. They don't belong in the country. They are slaves. They may not be even human. They may be barbarian. They're strangers to this country, Rome, right? And our society. In addition, there's something awful about the slaves. And this awful thing is that they may have different gods. So Diocletian says something important, I believe, on page 30. And I am not always serving you. I was forced, notice how he goes here. I was forced, Sebastian, to make war. I was forced. Was he? I conquered lands with suffering. I was forced, was he? To straighten out what was crooked in this empire and to put an end to anarchy. I was forced to build my beautiful city of Nicomedia. And how can the Christian God reproach me? God reproach me. So how do we read that answer? What is he actually saying when saying that? To me, I think he's giving Sebastian a reason for what he did, but it's an excuse because the emperor, in my view, represents full power, dominion over people. So if he needs to conquer, he will. If he needs to kill, he will. If he needs to enslave, he will. So excuses for domination and enslavement. But notice how the play already, it's presenting two groups clashing against each other, right? So we have the Christians and we have the emperor and those who serve under the emperor. So we have Rome and Christians, okay? Now, slaves, of course, being non-citizens, are in a different space, although they are under the power, right, of the Roman Empire. And they are submitted to whatever the empire demands. Okay, page 31. And I'm going to ask someone to read this, to give you a break from my voice. I'm going to say, Megan, could you please read page 31? Sebastian. You read us Sebastian and I'll read us Diocletian.
Okay. Oh, sacred one.
Speak.
My lord, your jewelry, your crown, you wear them without wondering about the suffering they cost the miserable slave, who seeks each gem, risking his life. From your embroidered robe, how many sleepless nights, and for the rich loot, you have brought from war so much blood, so much whipping and punishment, just to wear on your finger an emerald.
Yeah, just to wear on your finger an emerald, you know, all of that just for an emerald. Enough. Now in everything that surrounds me, I will see only hard work and fatigue. You have courage, Sebastian, to remind me that those who serve are never served. Calling. Slave, have supper with me. Pause. It is an order. No, I beg you. Pause. He points. See, he vanished.
For such a scourge, he fears to lose his life.
Yes. What is the emperor doing when he calls on the slave? And he says, have supper with me.
He is trying to show that he can be nice to his slaves, that it's not all suffering, but also when he says something to his slaves, they're terrified of him and afraid they will be punished or die.
The emperor knows already that they will be terrified, that they cannot come and have, something to eat with him. If that happens, they will be tortured or killed or put in a dungeon right away. So I think he is being what? he's pretending right next to Sebastian. He's pretending for the sake of pretending, but he's not actually being honest regarding the situation of the slave, because he knows that the slave will not come next to him. And the best choice the slave has is to go away. So Sebastian hasn't been able to change the behavior of the emperor. But there is one thing that Sebastian, I think, is doing, if you agree with me. He's trying for the emperor to listen to him and to what Sebastian has to say. This is the message, okay? Listen to the message. And then the emperor keeps giving Sebastian reasons, like pretending that he can go like anybody else around, you know, doing his business. But that's so fake. That's so fake, okay? And then Sebastian has said something very, very, what is it? Crucial, if you will, at least when he says, you know, for an emerald, for a gem, did you do all that conquering, destruction of people, societies, just to show off that, you know, on your finger? What is happening to you? What are your values, right? Now, of course, he's saying, I have different values. Now, the key, another aspect of this is that who is Sebastian? He will become a saint, but at this time he's not a saint, because for you to be a saint, you need to be placed into the narrative, right? The church has to put you into the narrative, and maybe people believe that you're a saint. But here is just, quote unquote, an average guy serving the emperor, right? So this is a person who's been changing his life. And we need to recognize that he's not a slave. Secondly, that he is a very respected citizen of Rome, and part of, you know, mixing up with the nobility. Therefore, this is not an average man already, okay? High class society. Well, question, am I trying to convince you to become Christian? What am I doing here? What is your suspicion? Kaylee, what do you think?
I'm not exactly sure.
Well, as far as you know, I'm not a priest or a pastor.
Yeah.
So most likely I'm not trying to convince you, but what I'm trying to do is to understand this, on the one hand, the history of the situation, the actual reality that took place. On the other hand, how people are using these characters for religious purposes. And thirdly, maybe, what was the context of Christianity within the Roman Empire? Now, there is one question I have not answered, which is this one. Why do we have the episodes right here throughout this play? Why? One answer that provided Jaylene is, oh, because this is a religious celebration in Chile, and they believe in that. Okay, cool. I'm cool with that. Okay, but I'm hinting here at maybe that. Let me say something to you. I think this is a metaphor. That the whole sequence of episodes, it's a metaphor. But then, at the end of our reading of the episode, we should answer this question. What kind of metaphor? Why a metaphor? A metaphor of what? Or a metaphor for what? Okay, so if it is a metaphor, what are we talking about? Okay, so please keep that in mind, the idea of metaphor for the episodes. So the second episode, page 39, right? Or is it? No, excuse me. What page is it?
31.
36. Okay, here we have two characters, Torquatus and Proconsul. And Torquatus is similar to Sebastian in that he also is a citizen of Rome turned into a Christian. Page 37, it says Torquatus, Christian, when Proconsul asked him about his name, Christian. Blasphemous word, say your name, Christian, again, right? Christian. Christian is the name I hold as mine. Mm-hmm. And then he says, why do you punish us for being Christians, right? Why should I be punished to death? Page 37, bottom of the page. If I am a Christian in Rome, it's my values, it's my beliefs, it's my religion, right? Page 38. Proconsul asked Torquatus to tell him who else is becoming a Christian, who else maybe is in palace, and being a Christian and passing as a faithful servant of the emperor. Okay, who's passing, who's pretending? Okay, and he says, I'm not an informant. I'm not gonna tell you. Again, strong beliefs, because he'll be punished, right? Then notice the punishment, page 39. What is the punishment? Page 39. Well, what will they do to him? Jimena, what will they do to him?
One second, sorry, I'm trying to get to that page.
39, top of the page. What will they do to him?
Torture him. I mean, there's a long list of things that they want to do to him.
Read them. Don't read the sentences. Just read the things that they will do to him.
Okay, so they will scrape his ribs, let him burn, hang him from his feet, let him die, force him to waste away, beheaded.
Which is quite a punishment, right? Beheaded.
Right. And then refuse him with an honorable burial.
Yeah, which is quite important, as we know, for anybody, right? Even today, where the place where you will be placed after your death, it's sacred somehow. It's important for everybody, not to be lost in space, right? And it is important for us to know where our relatives are interred. So yeah, and then taking back to the dungeon, right? Back to jail somehow. But that's the punishment. Now, so the story is saying, if you have values, like these Christian values at the time, right? You will stick to your values. And also you will show to the emperor, to this guy, the proconsul, that you stick to your values, because your values are more important than punishment. And notice, this is part of the Christian narrative, right? This is part of the Christian narrative, because the Christian narrative tells you that there are individuals in history that are martyrs for their beliefs, because of, they are they become martyrs. And martyr has for me that goes along with the idea or connotation that a person goes through a sacrifice, and maybe sacrifice of the body itself, and what it means to have a body, okay? to have flesh and bones, to be made of flesh and bones, right? So it's not sacrifice in the sense of, for me, sacrifice is blood. Why? Because we have Jesus, okay? Of course, blood. Now, this is complicated, maybe in the States in this sense. If you go most likely, if you go to a Catholic, even to a Catholic church, enter a Catholic church, and you will not see an iconic representation of Jesus that is very bloody, okay? Everything seems to be kind of cleaned and neat. And yes, you'll see maybe a Christ that has been crucified, but it's not gory. Or it's not, let me put this word into the conversation. It's not Baroque. Baroque. Okay? And I'm going to give you a false synonym, gory. That's a false synonym, okay? But so that you understand me. Why? Because the Christ in Latin America tends to be, not always, tends to be Baroque, gory. He will show the excruciating pain of crucifixion. His body will be twisting. His body will be at pains between this side of reality, earth and heaven, right? And there is something that will be in the narrative of Christ, pain and suffering is crucial because it means that there is solid attachment to God, right? And beliefs. There is no Jesus Christ without pain and suffering, without blood, without martyrdom. There is no Jesus Christ. It's the embodiment of that. Now, say you don't believe in that, then it's very difficult for you to understand that. Or secondly, you don't trust in that narrative, right? From the outside looking in, you may think oh, that's interesting, okay? And it's kind of traditional. That's the story they have been hearing for forever, okay? And it has all kinds of implications for people's lives. Cool, that's fantastic, okay? That's fine. But there's one thing. You can, as an anthropologist, at least, let me say that, try to understand the situation and see how this can be important for a culture. Or you can simply dismiss it and try not to understand it, or also say, I'm against that because of the implications, okay, this narrative may trigger for my life. And I, Oscar Sarmiento, will have to respect that. But the only thing I'm trying to say here is, for us to understand the play and the significance of values within the play maybe for the culture, right? For the playwright, it looks like that's important. So I need to understand it and appreciate it as such. That's all I'm saying, okay? So what I'm saying, bottom line, I'm not a priest. I'm trying to understand this mess, okay? That's what I'm trying to do. But also, what I'm trying to say is this. What about American culture and religious culture? Well, they say that we are very secular, but at the same time, that for many people in the States, religion is important. Now, with influx, right, and with the many people from the Hispanic community, those communities that have been here for for centuries, and the addition of more incoming immigrants, right? We have an impact on the country, right? And that may have a religious side as well, as you all know. But the country, given the European immigration, was not necessarily Catholic, as you know, because they maybe were fleeing from precisely that religion, or they were not, fitting in with that religion. When Irish people come here, right, we have people who are more or less in that tradition, maybe Italians as well, right? But if we were to identify American or culture, and I'm forgetting more and more people, right? I'm forgetting Native Americans, I'm forgetting African Americans, and so on and so forth. So it's very complex. But the dominant culture, maybe that's the key word here. It's what kind of dominant religious culture have we had here in the States? What would be the noun that you would use to describe it? Not Catholic, because Catholicism has not been predominant.
Can you repeat what you're asking?
The question is, what has been the predominant religious culture here in the States?
Christians.
I'm sorry?
Christianity?
Could you repeat it? I couldn't, the sound wasn't clear.
Christianity?
Well, in general, but I think we need to be, because Christianity encompasses so many, variations.
Is it Catholicism?
Very much.
Is it Catholicism?
I just said that Catholicism has not been predominant in the States.
Oh, I thought you meant like, oh, I guess I must have interpreted it the wrong way. I'm sorry.
I said, what has been the dominant religious culture here in the States? Not Catholicism.
Like Protestant?
There you go. That's a better description. Yes. Yes. And we need to say Protestant because Protestantism went against Catholicism, right? So the dominant, okay? And when I say dominant, that's a key word also, because I'm saying we have more, way more. If you only include Native Americans, we have religious practices here in the States that were not Protestant at all, and we know it, right? So my point, maybe that's why it's so difficult to understand or to refine our understanding about religious practices that come from Latin America. Because we are so much, into this Protestant culture that we filter any other religious practice through Protestantism. Even I would argue Catholicism in the States is filtered, the Catholicism that is practiced in the States, right, is filtered through Protestant views of Catholicism. And there's kind of a synergy between Catholicism and Protestantism, okay? So how do we see people who are different to us if we are mostly, thinking in patterns that belong to a dominant religious culture? That would be one of the questions for our class, okay? How do we, what happens? What happens when we don't even think about the patterns we are using to think about different people, right? We take them for granted. We just take them for granted. So, to return to our episodes. So this was an example of people turning into Christians, again, citizens, right? Not as slaves. Because the slaves have no freedom. They cannot say a word, right? They don't belong in society. So we need to remember that. Who has a voice and who doesn't in a society? If I'm teaching about Latin America, shouldn't I be talking about that? Of course I should. Of course I should, right? Of course I should pay attention to that. So the next episode, number 4, page 47. Notice how Christianity, according to the play, is not only a religious practice, because on page 47, Galerio says, we are dealing with an internal enemy, bottom of the page. Hidden and tame, but more dangerous than the barbarians you fight at the border. Galerius is saying this. This is a military guy, right? Commander, chief, talking to the emperor. So notice, Christianity is understood as a political force that may decimate Roman society and their gods. Okay, so it's a political force transforming possibly the values of Rome. If you were to make it, let me ask you a question, okay? Maybe this is a tricky question. Sorry about it. Sorry about it. Is there any parallel that we can make to America?
Any what?
Is there any parallel that we can make to America? This idea of having an internal enemy that is fighting our values, that is transforming the values of America. Yes, go ahead, please. If you have an answer, if you want to.
Like this might sound a little weird, but like just based off of like, so basically you're basically asking like what is like a movement or like an idea that is destroying, like that's kind of like counteracting like the traditional values of this country.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I think, wow, this is kind of weird saying it, but I don't know.
I'm just asking the question because if you have an answer, maybe this play will make more sense. That's why I'm asking the question. Okay.
I guess like one common example. I guess like so like basically like maybe like in the 20th century, I think communism was like an example of that because it really went against like America's like capitalistic way of life, and people, especially people like down south, saw communism as like Satan's, like government. Like they thought it was like really ridiculous. Like why someone be imposed like such a ridiculous type of government, you know?
Mm-hmm. So what group was going against the government?
The group, I would say it was more like the idea, like, you know, like how some people are kind of like leaning towards that direction.
Okay. Yeah, if a community is going against the conception of a specific, of the government, yeah, here we have a clash of political values, indeed. The play seems to be what is it? Seems to be putting an emphasis on deep values that are ingrained in society, and therefore we have a confrontation between dominant values and, let me put it this way, subversive values, transgressive values. Okay? The dominant values for this society, Roman times, would be gods, their belief in gods, and gods that support the state of Rome against Christian values. Okay, one Christian value for this play would be poverty and equality. No more emperors. We are equals. We have the right to love each other, which seems to be, a claim from the 60s. Maybe let's make love happen. Forget about, as you were saying, forget about capitalistic values or intentions, right? And so on and so forth. Yes, so what could be transgressing then the values of a society? Why would that happen? Why would that be happening, right? And maybe that's part of the metaphor that I was talking about, that these episodes are, in fact, a metaphor for something that is happening in Chilean society. But what is happening in Chilean society? Okay, I ask you to watch that video, and I'll return to the video now for a couple of minutes only, so that we talk about the video. Let me see. This was the video. Hope to find it. Here.
Interests. No target was too lofty and no country was safe. It saw us It saw assassinations on U.S. soil and even death threats to U.S. congressmen who'd worked to stop its spread. It was, in no uncertain terms, a campaign of terror meant to install right-wing leaders against the will of their people, and it was incredibly effective. With the election of Allende, Chile became
sorry about that.
The prime target of Condor. Up until that point, they'd successfully held down left-wing democratic victories in every country on the continent, but Allende had defied the odds and won. The people were on his side. But as always, the people may have held the government, but they did not hold the power. His removal from office would come at the point of a gun. In 1970, Richard Nixon informed the CIA that, quote, "It is firm and continuing policy that Allende be overthrown by a coup. It is imperative that these actions be implemented clandestinely and securely so that the American hand be well hidden." The first attempt came in June 1973, undertaken by military elements of the extreme right. It failed, but it taught the CIA the weak points of Allende's supporters, both in the public and the military. Information was gathered on his weapons, tactics, and where his supporters were willing to take to the streets. The next time, they'd be more prepared. On September 11th, 1973, Chilean democracy died with a bang. The putsch came under the leadership of General Augusto Pinochet, and with help from the CIA, his fighter jets bombed the capital and his troops rushed in and took the nation. It was less a show to Allende that his time was over and more of a display of power to the nation. Very few people supported the coup, but they couldn't fight an air force. With Allende dead, Pinochet unleashed a war against his own people. Hour by hour, day by day, he worked to destroy the institutions of democracy that had led to the leftist election victory. 2 days after the murder of Allende, he dissolved Congress. Those who disagreed were murdered. Over 130,000 people were imprisoned within the first 3 years of the dictatorship, a dictatorship that was to last for 15 years. Symbols of the left were destroyed or turned into detention centers. Popular artist hangouts became prisons for interrogation. Even those on the extreme right were shocked at the violence.
So could you retell the story in your own words? We're in Chile. September 11, 1973. What took place? What took place? Kels.
There was an attack where a bunch of was it jets or something, or
Was it what?
nothing. A bunch of people came in and they took over the area and killed whoever was against it.
Mm-hmm. What was the president at the time? Who was the president?
Allende?
Yes. What kind of party was he representative of? Was he representing? I'm sorry?
He was a socialist?
Yes, he was a socialist elected by the people.
Yep.
The Chilean people went to the polls and they voted. And by a narrow margin, Allende was elected. Okay. But he created a coalition and he was effective in negotiating his coming to the presidency and being, in the end, president of Chile for 3 years. Now, Kels was saying, like a bunch of people, that's imprecise, Kels. Who overthrew Allende? Kels. I'm sorry, no, Lindsay, who overthrew Allende? according to this guy who was presenting the story, you know, in the video.
Does his name start with a C?
With a C? No.
No, it was, I thought it was.
I wasn't talking about a person or individual. I was talking about an entity, a group. Who would this be? Would this be Martians? Would this be cowboys? Who took over?
It was the extreme right with the help of the CIA.
And the
Yes.
military junta. Okay, in the end, Augusto Pinochet. Yeah. So the military forces took over and ousted Salvador Allende. And thanks for saying that, because the CIA, as it's been documented, had a lot to do with this breakdown of democracy in Chile. And the reason for that was that at the time, the government was, the administration of Richard Nixon thought that the Cold War required force so that communism wouldn't happen in Latin America. When in Cuba, Fidel Castro and Che Guevara made a revolution possible, they forced the dictator, the right-wing dictator, out. And so they took up arms, right? And there was an internal war in Cuba that ended with people killed and people who went into exile. And that took place early on, right? In 1959. And now we're talking about 1973 in Chile. And notice, Chile was not Cuba. Chile, people did not have arms necessarily. They went to their arms were their hands and a pen saying, yes, I vote and I favor Allende in this election. That's what took place, right? But maybe that was more risky for the Nixon administration and the situation, the Cold War situation, because they thought, wow, if we start, looking around and more people start voting socialists, socialists which will be allies with communists, what is going to happen? More support for Cuba, more support for the Soviet Union. We are in a fight here with the Soviet Union, right? Soviet Union. And these guys are not innocent bystanders. They have connections to the Soviet Union and so on and so forth. The thing is, people did elect Salvador Allende in Chile. And then what was the result of the coup d'etat? That's my next question. Jimena, what took place after the coup d'etat when the military junta and Augusto Pinochet took over?
He dissolved Congress and then killed anybody who disapproved of his actions. Exactly. And imprisoned people.
Yes, and that's crucial for the play. If you miss that, you're missing, I would say 90% of the play, okay? Because for the play, what we have, in fact, and I'm going to tell you right away, it's mothers who are looking after their disappeared, or the kids who were tortured, killed, disappeared. And that's the force, the energy behind, full force through the actual play, not the episodes, but the actual play, okay, that we would be seeing on a stage. So one more little point, which is not that little, okay? In the States, in the United States, traditionally, what we have is this telling of the story. We usually tell that dictatorship equals communism, right? That people's rights were suppressed by communism. I'm not against that. But what I'm saying here is that in Chile, what took place was kind of the opposite. It was a right-wing military junta decimating their own fellow, citizens. So instead of communism in Chile, what we had again, was a right-wing military junta taking over the country and persecuting people, and more than persecuting people, actually, as you saw, killing people. So if you get that straight, then I believe the play will make more sense to you as well. When we start the play, we are beginning to see that people are talking about their own relatives and friends who have been murdered by the military junta in Chile. So in fact, this is a very historical play, and this is a very political play in which mothers, again, will play an important, crucial role, okay? So that's the historical context for the play. We may have to come back next class in case this is confusing you, okay? But this is the very basic line, if you will, storyline that we need to follow and attach it to the play on a stage. Okay, so let me see if I can show you something else here. I think I need to share my screen. Yes. So since I'm talking about mothers, I'm going to right away show you a video about mothers, but these are not Chilean mothers. These are Argentinian mothers, okay? And notice what they are doing. This is the 4th anniversary, right? Of Mothers of Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is not Chile.
Mirta de Baravalle is one of 2 remaining founders of the Mothers of Plaza de Mayo. Every Thursday afternoon, she shows up in her white headscarf at the square in front of Argentina's presidential palace. When the clock strikes 3:30, she starts walking in circles, holding up a picture of her daughter, Ana Maria, and her son-in-law, Julio Cesar. It's a ritual Mirta began 40 years ago with a small group of desperate women whose children and grandchildren had been taken by the military dictatorship, never to be seen again. Since then, 12 of the 14 founding mothers of Plaza de Mayo have passed away, but 93-year-old Mirta really misses a march.
El jueves es algo dedicado a los 30.000.
Thursdays are dedicated to the 30,000 who were detained by the military and disappeared. It's a lifetime commitment.
The mothers have been walking in circles every single week since 1977 because they say their work is still not done. This is all the more extraordinary when you consider it has been 34 years since Argentina has returned to democracy. Mirta's daughter was 5 months pregnant when she was arrested. The last she heard was that Ana Maria had given birth in prison, but the child and the parents were never found. Since the return of democracy in 1983, scores of military officers responsible for committing human rights violations during the dictatorship have been brought to justice. But just as the mothers were celebrating their 40th anniversary, they were dealt an unexpected blow. A Supreme Court ruling was passed which could have set many of the imprisoned torturers free. But this time, the mothers were not alone. Tens of thousands of Argentines joined their cause as they marched onto the Plaza de Mayo. The massive reaction forced Congress to quickly approve a law invalidating the Supreme Court's decision.
Que el pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
The following Thursday, the mothers were once again circling the Plaza de Mayo as usual, cheered by Argentines and foreigners who have come to see them as an example of resistance. Monica Yanakiev, TRT World, Buenos Aires.
So what, just to be precise, a coup d'etat took place then in Chile in 1973, September 11, 1973. A right-wing military junta takes over the power, the political power of the country, and oust the government of Salvador Allende, socialist. In 1973, now in Argentina, the situation more or less repeats. President a president that was elected democratically by people is ousted by a military junta, and this is in 1976, not 1973. And question, what are the mothers of Plaza de Mayo doing according to the video? What is it that they have been doing? Notice, since 1977, so 1 year after that coup d'etat in Argentina, not in Chile, right? What have they been doing? That's the question. Yeah.
Protesting against the government for imprisoning their citizen, their family, basically.
Yes, indeed. So it's a human rights issue, but it's a political issue as well, human rights issue. Now, it doesn't mean that the military junta stayed for many, many years, you know. Now they had democracy in Argentina and the mothers were still protesting. Why did they keep protesting and kind of endlessly, Megan? Why didn't they stop?
Because they never got answers about their children. They never saw their children again. Just
yes.
Because they changed it didn't make it any better for these families.
Yes, because in some instances, Megan, actually they got news, okay? They found out. Mm-hmm. But what they were saying is, until we don't get to know about the very last one, we will not stop. We will not stop. The same happened in Chile, and it still happens, okay? It's still happening. If I don't have news of my relative who was disappeared, and that's quote unquote disappeared, right? I'm gonna keep fighting for justice. The Supreme Court of my country needs to give me an answer. People who were the torturers or the murderers of my people, right, need to be brought to justice. And so in that sense, Megan, it's endless, right? But many cases, many cases have been solved. Many cases have been solved, okay? And that's the situation until these days. In the play, if we go back for at least a minute to the play, Sebastian will be dying twice, okay? And on page 56, briefly, page 56, in one of the episodes, Diocletian says to him, "You were my favorite one. I treated you like a son." But then Sebastian says, "You knew I was a Christian with duties to fulfill. So we were on opposite sides of this fight." And then on page 58, we get to the moment in which the emperor has to take sides, finally, drastically against Sebastian. And this is what happens. Sebastian says midway through the page, "Because of my beliefs, I know they will take my life away. Whereas you, my executioner, you don't know why you are sending me to death." And then Diocletian, hurt, "For calling me your executioner, consider yourself lost. That is to say, I will tell them to kill you." Okay, so point, Sebastian couldn't be his son. He couldn't be, because the values that one person has and the power, right? Power that one person has does not equal the values of the power of the other person. So we have a clash, right? Of given the inequality of the situation. My values against your values, your power against my little faith, if you will, at the time, okay? Basically that. Did I forget something? I just want to, in case I forgot something, we'll continue then next class with the play. Remember, rehearsal time, so prepare your monologues. At the beginning of the class session, I said, and I showed you again the list of monologues with more details. I will post this right after the class now in the raise your hand so that you know what lines you should use for your presentation, okay? Questions?
Do we have to videotape these monologues?
No, I want for all of us to meet here and for you to present to us. No videotape, please.
So do I still have to read the Bill monologue?
Do you still have to what?
Read as in the Yankee play.
You have assignment, yes, you have one monologue assigned. And you
Okay.
have to stage it. It's your performance, your moment of glory, Lindsay. Your moment of glory.
Right.
Okay, guys, I'll see you next time. If you don't have any questions, great seeing you today. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy your beautiful day.
Thank you, Professor. I actually have one thing to say. Actually, it's not really a question. So I've been having a lot of trouble submitting assignments on Moodle, as you well know. And I realized last night as I submitted my report yet again, I did not click submit. So that was my fault.
Okay.
So
I'm laughing because that may happen to me many times.
I know. I realize that now we should be a little bit more, accustomed to using Moodle. So it is sort of my fault for not looking and scrolling down a little bit more. But I was wondering, will it still be counted as late? I mean,
it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Let me give you also a suggestion here. If for some reason it's not that you are not clicking the submit button. If there is a complication, email it to me, okay? Or email something that it's written. So that way you try at least with Moodle, and at the same time you send it to me, and you can briefly explain. This happened.
Okay.
So I had to email it to you. Yeah.
Okay, because I was trying to resubmit it during class, but it wouldn't let me. So I think it's because I'm on Zoom or something. So
Maybe.
I'm gonna try again after class, and then if something does go wrong and it still doesn't submit, I'll go ahead and email you.
Please do so.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you, Jimena. Have a good day.
All right. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For the monologues, we're just memorizing it, right?
That's the one basic step, but it's one of the steps. You're doing this. You're acting it out.
Yeah.
Oh, you understood that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I was about showing one actor who will give us advice on how to perform. So I'm going to show that next time around. But I don't intend for you guys, you all, to become actors, but just to somehow let us know what is your interpretation of that situation and what is your interpretation of the character. How do you see the character, their emotions, their ideas, and their complications? So if you are able to portray that, that's the assignment, actually. That is the assignment. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.